Good morning. This is Kenneth and Heather with the Advancing Equity Coalition, here to give you all our quick recap and update on last night's Committee of the Whole meeting discussing literacy in Minneapolis Public Schools once again. Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually recording in New Orleans with um, in my wife's childhood bedroom right now. And I got to watch last night's school board meeting with my wife's mom, which was very fun to hear her process everything that was going on and to just be like, wait, what? But we'll get a little bit into that. So, Heather, do you want to give us, a quick rundown of what went down last night?
Yeah, so last night was a committee of the whole meeting, and we really only had one presentation. Originally, there were going to be three, but then it ended up that the presentation and then the questions afterward took up so much time and space. Academics was going to present three different things, but they really only focused on their literacy progress. So, what we learned last night was that our academic department has developed what they are now calling a literacy framework.
Yep.
We started with their mission and their vision, and then they talked about staff expectations, student outcomes, the commitment that they were making to families. They
Mm,
shared their timeline. Then they kind of broke it down. We heard from a lot of different people on the academics team. It was many different presenters. We heard about the birth to three, pre-K, adult, dual language, special education, elementary and secondary education, and then we were on to questions and answers from the board.
yep. Yep. So that was the full breakdown and like all of the different parts that were covered during or that are a part of the literacy framework. And so we wanted to show you our slide of the night, which is really just around sorry about that, which is just around the vision and mission of what the literacy framework is trying to accomplish. And so you can see here that the vision is that MPS will affirm and cultivate learners' language and literacy development, so centering identity, joy, and critical thinking. And the mission is to ensure that folks are empowered, inspired, and engaged in literacy through culturally sustaining curriculum and instruction. Um, which I think, at its face is like a really good vision and mission. I think there are really critical pieces here around, literacy development, centering identity, joy, and critical thinking. I think, a lot about, a few years ago, several years ago now, I guess, where the slide or the part of the literacy curriculum was around like that lazy Lucy um, material that the district had. And so, thinking about, where we are now and talking about how do we center identity, how do we really do proper identity development, and, centering joy and things like that is so, so important. Um, I will say, on top of that, though, I do notice while it talks about developing language and literacy skills, or talks about, yeah, language and literacy development, it doesn't talk about, hard metrics, hard goals around how many students are going to build the skill of literacy, who we're going to have reading by third grade. And I think, that's a little later in the deck where we see, all students reading at or above grade level by third grade and all these types of things. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was just difficult to see this framework, see what our priorities is, but not see what the goal is and not have the goal be the priority. And then the other thing that I'll just name really quickly is last night, as they're talking through this slide, they sort of mentioned how in the framework itself, and I can pull it back up again really quickly, but in the mission, this is good. This is really talking about, how um, all of our communities are really brought up and seen, and how like equity is really coming through when we're talking about our most marginalized students. But I actually don't see that in this language. And I think that's really important that at this point where we are as a society, and especially in this district, we aren't at the point of implicitly um, just assuming that equity is going to be in at the forefront, that our students who have been marginalized and who've been failed for so long are actually going to be the center of this plan. I think you need to explicitly state that, because right now I can think of a couple of different documents from the district that explicitly name that, and then, you know, I don't think they're coming up, they're meeting that standard. And but at least we can have an argument because they stated that that's what they care about explicitly, versus here it's not explicitly written and it's supposed to be an, I think it's an implicit assumption. And if we're 2 years down the road on this and we have an argument, they can say, well, we didn't actually specifically lay out that this is the vision, that's the mission. And so I think we can't at this moment where we're at just make those types of assumptions and give any system the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that. So that's what I wanted to call out and name here.
Yes. Well, let's talk about this. Who was your most valuable? What was your most valuable moment of the night?
So my most valuable moment, I know we try to do most valuable moment for every recap. And I think, I do think it's important to try to celebrate the things, highlight the things that are either going well or like a specific moment that like we should be mirroring all of our moments around. Unfortunately, last night it wasn't there. And I can't, I'm not going to give a most valuable moment to something that may be small or insignificant. I think at this point we really need to, this has been our fifth literacy presentation, I think. And it doesn't feel like this conversation is moved
Totally.
on the district side or the board side. And so I don't have a most valuable moment from last night. I didn't think any moment was super valuable. I don't, I, yeah, I was really disappointed.
Well, so my most valuable moment is like similar to yours in that I'm gonna give it to Senior Officer Moore, and he didn't even speak last night, so this is kind of an interesting thing. So again, in a sort of way, I'm not giving one out for last night, but I just wanna highlight what I feel is the difference between the steady, consistent updating that I've been seeing from him and his department on the CDD. We've been seeing transparent moves, we've seen metrics, we've seen where they're going, what's happening, and with the climate framework. We've seen the same thing. We can see the PD. We can see how it's changed. We can see what's happening. Are those things perfect? No. But what I see is a full plan, updates, right? Metrics. How will we know we've been successful? And I would say he and his team, every time I've seen a presentation from them, at least I know where we've been and where we're going. And none of that was evident to me last night. So um, I, I wish we would hear his voice. If children not being able to read feels like especially children of color, feels like an equity issue, and I don't understand how those departments don't need to work together. But anyway, so that's my most valuable moment. What is your do better moment then?
So my do better moment from last night, I'm gonna give it, and I feel like I've done this a couple of times now, and I'm not trying to make it a cop out or anything like this, but I'm gonna give it to the entire board. I think after the last several literacy presentations, we kind of knew what to expect. The district did do some stakeholder engagement with different parent advisory councils and different community groups, stakeholder engagement groups that they have organized. And everyone that we've talked to, everyone that we've talked to that have been a part of those stakeholder engagement groups, like have had like really disappointing things to say, honestly, about the presentation, and were really frustrated and asked a lot of really critical questions that they didn't feel like the district ever answered. And so while it sounds like I'm giving that to the district, I think, that's what we came to expect from the district. And I had really low expectations coming in, and, they didn't exceed them. And so, but my do better moment goes to the board, because after months and months and months of these same types of presentations, I don't feel like the board is pushing the district to do better, to go somewhere else. and to really hold the district and the superintendent accountable for an evolving, moving plan to meet the urgency of the need, right? Like this is like we're talking about so many of our students not being able to read at grade level, and they just the board continues to allow the superintendent and the academics team like not present something substantive that feels like there's teeth behind, that people feel confident about. And if they're not going to push themselves, I expect the board to push them, but we didn't see the board push at all. And we haven't seen them push, and they continue to allow the superintendent year after year after year to have low marks on his literacy evaluation or his academics evaluation, but then don't push him to do something differently, to expect something different. And so it doesn't feel like him or the district is really being held accountable. So I'll give my do better moment to the board. Like I think you all need to ask harder, stronger questions, to force the district to react and to move. And it doesn't need to be like micromanagey or anything like that. I think it needs to be about strong governance. And so, but at this point, we're seeing, multiple school board members tap out publicly. Like they're not asking questions at this point.
Yep.
And then, I'm not sure, what or where the board is giving feedback and really asking the district to go when they get this type of presentation for the board members that are asking questions. And so, long story short, my do better moment goes to the entire board and the entire literacy question and answer section.
My do better moment goes to the timeline that was presented last night. So, we got told we've seen so many literacy presentations, and we have been promised big things all year. And so we were promised a plan, right? The plan was coming, just wait until this meeting. And then all of a sudden it's a framework. And so the framework took them from October until now. But now from this framework stage to getting stakeholder feedback, to which I didn't see really demonstrated last night, to getting everything ready, to being ready to present it in professional development to teachers in August. So it took this long to make a framework, but now we're going to be ready to go with professional development to teachers to recreate an entirely new way that we are going to celebrate cultural sustainability with the same teachers. We're going to do that from July to August. That just doesn't seem reasonable to me, and I think a too aggressive timeline sets us up for failure.
Yeah, I'm laughing a little bit because my mother-in-law was watching the school board meeting with me last night, and she said the same thing. And she's like, she's got a project planning certificate. Like she's a planner in her job on a regular basis, and she was like, so they've been saying throughout this entire meeting that they've been working on this framework for a year. And now this is the point where they're going to the board, they're revising and then they're going to take the board's feedback and revise the framework a little more, and then have it ready to go in July. And then after they create the framework, then they're going to make a plan when PD is supposed to start, like you said, in August. So that's like a 2-week window essentially to create a whole plan for professional development, all this kind of stuff. Like that doesn't make any sense. And so my mother-in-law was railing about that as we were watching it together. And she was telling me that she was like, yeah, you better make that your do better moment. So I'm glad you called it out, because yeah, that
I'm glad to get points with your mother-in-law.
But yeah, I mean, it didn't make a whole lot of sense, and I think that's also really frustrating, and why everyone expected a plan to be in place today. But this is where we're at right now, and so I think the question is, what is it going to take to get more substance, more clarity, more urgency out of the district's literacy approach? And I think that's on you and me. I think that's on us as a community to demand it, because right now we're not there's not pressure. It doesn't seem like there's any pressure or urgency from the district or the board to get those answers. So, well, I appreciate you diving into this with me, Heather. This was great. Um, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.